I remember the day my youngest, Billy, brought Sarah home to meet us. She was pretty quick-witted, and had a charming way of speaking. I was so happy then. Finally, my baby boy had found someone he loved. My husband, George, a man of few words, just nodded and gave his usual gentle smile. Dinner that night was lively and filled with laughter. I thought finally, our family would have a new member, a daughter at last. But things weren't as simple as I'd imagined. Sarah, with her sweet exterior, revealed something off about her the longer she stayed. She was critical, always noticing and pointing things out. Especially with me. At first, it was just casual remarks, like, "Mrs. Martha, your cooking is a bit too rich. I'm used to blander food." Then, gradually, she started interfering with everything in the house, from how I arranged the furniture to how I tended the garden. I'm a creature of habit. Everything has its place. George, he's easygoing, never paid much mind to these little things. But Sarah was different. She wanted everything her way. And her way, well, it was often strange. Take, for instance, the antique tea set my mother left me. I treasured it, used it occasionally. Sarah saw it and said, "This is so old, Mrs. Martha, why don't you just throw it out and buy something modern? It looks so dated." I could have choked on my own breath. That tea set wasn't just an object. It held memories. It was a part of me. Then there was Billy. From the day he fell for Sarah, he changed completely. He hung on her every word. Everything was, "Sarah said this. Sarah likes that." If I offered an opinion, he'd just brush it off, calling me old-fashioned and out of touch. It made me so sad. My own son, a stranger. Many nights, I wondered if that Sarah had cast some kind of spell on my boy. But the breaking point, the moment that felt like a cold blade piercing my heart, was when my first grandson, Tommy, was born. He was a chubby, adorable little angel. I remember the feeling of holding him for the first time, so tiny, so warm. My heart melted. I thought finally, I have a grandchild to hold, someone to love and care for. Except, Sarah forbade me from holding him. That day, the whole family gathered at Billy's house to celebrate Tommy's 1-month milestone. I was so excited, bought so many toys and cute outfits for him. While everyone was eating and chatting happily, I edged closer to the bassinet, wanting to hold Tommy for just a moment. He was sleeping soundly, his little face so plump and sweet. I had just reached out my hand when Sarah rushed over, snatching him away. "Mom, what are you doing?" Her voice was ice cold. I startled, stammering, "Oh, I just wanted to hold him for a bit, honey. He looks so peaceful." Sarah clutched Tommy tightly to her chest, her face contorted in annoyance. "I told you, Mom. Tommy isn't used to strangers. Holding him too much will make him cry." I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to believe my ears. Strangers? I'm his grandmother, Sarah. I took care of Billy when he was just this small. She looked at me, her eyes as if I were something dirty, repulsive. "But what I mean is, babies are very sensitive. He cries when he's around older people. Their scent isn't good for newborns." Those words, they were like a dagger straight to my heart. Older people. Did she mean I was old, unclean, making my own grandson uncomfortable? I stood there, in front of everyone, feeling a shame and humiliation so profound I couldn't bear it. Everyone was silent. No one said a word. Billy just stared at the floor, avoiding my gaze. George sighed and patted my shoulder gently. But that pat, it didn't comfort me. It only made the pain worse. I retreated, sinking onto the sofa in the corner of the room. My throat was tight. No words would come. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't allowed to hold my own grandson. Because I was old. That reason, it was so illogical, so cruel, I couldn't fathom it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah clutching Tommy, her cold, distant eyes staring at me. I lay there, alone in the large bedroom, feeling like an outsider in my own home. What had I done wrong? I had raised my children, cared for this family for so many years. And now, I was being treated like this. Just because I had grown old? I wouldn't accept it. I couldn't go on living like this. I had to do something. I had to make them see I wasn't a useless old woman, an outsider in this family. I had to reclaim the respect I deserved. I didn't know where to start, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't give up. Never. The days that followed that humiliating night dragged on like lead weights. I tried to appear normal, still getting up early to prepare breakfast for George, still busying myself with cleaning the house and tending my beloved rose bushes. But deep down, a fierce undercurrent was churning within me. Every time I inadvertently saw Billy and Sarah cooing over little Tommy, Sarah's cold words echoed in my ears. Tommy cries when he's around older people. It was like an open wound, throbbing with a dull ache, cutting into my heart a little more each day, a constant reminder of the distance and indifference I was enduring. George, my husband, a gentle man accustomed to enduring things quietly, noticed my sadness. He was worried, but his worry was a silent one, unspoken. He would just sigh softly, then pat my shoulder, trying to comfort me with his usual phrase. "Just let the kids be, Martha. Everything will be all right in the end." How could things be all right when I wasn't even allowed to hold my own grandchild, the flesh and blood of my son? The all right George spoke of felt so distant and hopeless. I started paying closer attention to Sarah. I observed how she treated everyone around her, the way she chose her words. The sweet, agreeable facade she had presented initially now seemed to me like a thin veil concealing a completely different person. Inside, I detected a chilling selfishness, a habit of calculating and nitpicking over every little detail. She always wanted things her way, never willing to listen to or respect the opinions of others, especially mine. I remember one instance when the whole family was planning to go out for dinner at a newly opened restaurant Billy had heard good things about from his friends. I gently suggested our usual cozy Italian place that the family frequented on special occasions. Sarah immediately wrinkled her nose, her displeasure evident. "That restaurant is so old, Mrs. Martha, and the food isn't even that good anymore. Let's go eat Japanese. I heard there's a new place on Elm Street that's delicious, and the decor is lovely." Billy, as usual, nodded in agreement without a second thought, completely oblivious to the fleeting sadness on my face. George remained silent, not offering an opinion, perhaps too accustomed to yielding to his daughter-in-law. In the end, the whole family went for Japanese, a cuisine I didn't particularly enjoy. I sat at the table, picking at the cold sushi, a heavy sadness weighing on my heart like a rainy afternoon. Even in something as trivial as choosing a restaurant for dinner, my opinion held no weight. Gradually, I began to feel like an invisible ghost in this house. Everyone acted as if I didn't exist, my words falling into a meaningless void. The stories I wanted to share, the opinions I wanted to offer, no one bothered to listen. I was just a shadow flitting through the rooms, silently doing thankless tasks that no one seemed to notice my presence in. But, in that dark and lonely period, a small ray of light appeared, flickering like a candle in the wind. That was Carlos. He still came over regularly to help me with small chores, tasks that Billy and Sarah never seemed to notice needed doing. Changing burnt-out light bulbs, carrying heavy bags from the supermarket, trimming the dead branches from the rose bushes in the backyard. He was always polite, always calling me Mrs. Martha, with a warmth and sincerity that felt strangely comforting. One sunny afternoon, I was sitting on the porch watering the hydrangeas I had just planted, when Carlos walked by and stopped to lend a hand. He watered the plants while chatting with me, asking about my health, about the small pleasures in my daily life. It had been so long since a young person had asked me such questions, genuinely and with concern. "Are you feeling all right, Mrs. Martha?" Carlos asked, his voice genuinely worried, his eyes looking at me with concern. I sighed, looking at the hydrangeas blooming in their various shades. "I'm all right, Carlos. It's just, sometimes I feel a little sad. At this age, you often feel like you're just in the way, you know?" He fell silent. I started paying closer attention to the dynamics within the family. Observing Billy and Sarah, I noticed the laughter between them wasn't as frequent as it used to be. Billy seemed tired, often irritable. Sarah maintained her perfect facade, but her eyes held a colder glint. I suspected their life together wasn't as smooth as it appeared on the surface. Then I started noticing things about their finances. Sarah always presented herself as the one managing everything, from daily expenses to investments. Billy seemed to trust her implicitly, never asking questions. But I, with my years of experience, sensed something was amiss. Sarah often bought expensive things but would then complain about being short on money. Designer clothes, lavish vacations. I wondered where all the money was coming from. I remember one time Billy was lamenting to George about some business setbacks. George was worried and asked questions, but Sarah just shrugged it off, saying, "Don't worry about it, honey. I've got everything under control." The way she said it made me even more suspicious. I started digging. I casually asked Billy about their financial situation. He was naive, saying, "Sarah handles everything, Mom, she's really good with money." When I pressed for more details, he'd just hem and haw, not really saying anything concrete. I knew Sarah was hiding something from Billy. Around the same time, my bond with Carlos grew stronger. I confided in him about my suspicions regarding Sarah. Carlos was a bright young man, and he listened intently to everything I said. "Mrs. Martha suspects Mrs. Sarah is having financial issues?" Carlos asked, his brow furrowed in thought. I nodded. "I feel it in my bones, Carlos. That girl spends so much, but I never see her working. I'm afraid she's doing something shady behind Billy's back." Carlos was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe Mrs. Martha should try to find out? Maybe it's just worry talking." I sighed. "I hope you're right, Carlos. But my gut feeling tells me something's wrong." I decided to discreetly keep an eye on Sarah. I paid attention to her phone calls, the messages she sent. I noticed the times she went out without telling Billy where she was going. I knew it wasn't right, invading someone's privacy like that. But I felt I had no other choice. I had to protect my son. One afternoon, Sarah told Billy she was meeting a friend. But I saw her drive off in the opposite direction. I immediately called Carlos, asking him to discreetly follow her. He agreed without hesitation. That evening, Carlos called me, his voice serious. "Mrs. Martha, I saw Mrs. Sarah go into a casino on the outskirts of town." Hearing Carlos's words, my heart sank. A casino. What was Sarah doing there? Could it be she had a gambling problem? So many worried thoughts raced through my mind. If it was true, what would happen to my Billy? That night, I barely slept. I worried about Billy, about Tommy. I blamed myself for trusting Sarah too easily, for not seeing her true colors sooner. The next morning, I decided to talk to Billy. I couldn't keep silent any longer. I had to tell my son the truth. I waited until Billy finished breakfast, just as he was about to leave for work, and called him back. "Billy, I need to talk to you about something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Billy stopped, looking at me with surprise. "What is it, Mom? You don't look well." I took a deep breath. "It's about. I suspect Sarah. She has a problem with money." Billy frowned. "What kind of problem, Mom?" "Sarah manages our finances really well." I told Billy about my suspicions, about Sarah's unusual spending habits, how she often complained about not having enough money. Then I told him about Carlos seeing Sarah go into the casino. At first, Billy didn't believe me. He dismissed it, saying I was overthinking things. He said Sarah probably just went there with friends. But when I spoke with certainty about Carlos's sighting, his face began to pale. "Mom, are you sure?" Billy asked, his voice trembling slightly. I nodded. "I'm sure, Billy. Carlos wouldn't lie." Billy was silent for a long moment, his face ashen. I saw the confusion and fear in his eyes. I don't know, Mom. I always trusted Sarah," Billy said, his voice faltering. I hugged my son, rubbing his back gently. I know you trusted her. But you have to be careful, Billy. I'm afraid she'll hurt you. From that day on, Billy started paying more attention to Sarah. He questioned her about money, about her outings. Sarah initially tried to deny everything, but gradually, her lies started to unravel. Billy began to realize that his wife wasn't as straightforward as he thought. The relationship between Billy and Sarah grew increasingly strained. Arguments became more frequent. I watched my son suffer, and my heart ached for him. I knew this truth would hurt him deeply. But it was better to face the pain once and for all than to live a lie. And I knew this was just the beginning. Sarah's secrets ran deeper. I wouldn't stop until everything was brought to light. I had to protect my family, protect my Billy and my sweet little Tommy. After my suspicions about Sarah's gambling were confirmed, and then the shocking news about the strange man at the bar, my vigilance intensified into a quiet but determined surveillance. I couldn't stand by and watch my son be deceived and betrayed any longer. I started paying attention to Sarah's every little action, trying to decipher the mysteries she was so desperately trying to conceal. Her secretive phone calls became more frequent, the hushed conversations ending abruptly whenever anyone in the house approached. Her phone seemed to be an extension of her hand, messages constantly arriving and disappearing, always deleted immediately after being read, as if she feared someone would uncover her secrets. That unusual secrecy and anxiety only fueled my unease and suspicion. One evening, Billy came home from work later than usual, his face etched with exhaustion after a long day. He found Sarah standing in front of the large bedroom mirror, meticulously applying makeup, dressed in a glamorous outfit as if preparing for an important event. "Where are you going at this hour, Sarah?" Billy asked, his voice low with fatigue and a hint of suspicion. He was starting to notice the inconsistencies in his wife's behavior. Sarah glanced at Billy through the mirror, a forced, cold smile playing on her lips. "I'm meeting a friend. Why do you always have to question me? I have my own life, you know." "I was just asking, Sarah. You've been going out so much lately. Tommy misses his mother. He keeps asking, 'Where's Mommy, Daddy?'" Billy said, his voice tinged with sadness, his eyes looking at Sarah with a longing for a gentle explanation. "He has his grandma, doesn't he? You always see her hovering around him. You worry too much." "What I do is my business, just stay out of it," Sarah retorted dismissively, her tone laced with a sarcasm that seemed to imply I was interfering too much in their lives. Hearing Sarah's words, a sharp pain shot down my spine, as if someone had plunged a cold knife into my heart. She treated me like a free babysitter, an obstacle in her precious, private life. She had no regard for my feelings, nor did she pay any attention to little Tommy's yearning for his mother. Her selfishness and heartlessness had crossed my limit. "Sarah, what are you saying? Mrs. Martha has done so much for us. Don't be disrespectful like that. I don't want you treating my mother this way anymore. She sacrificed her whole life for this family," Billy interjected, his voice now sharp, his patience seemingly exhausted. He was beginning to recognize the cruelty in Sarah's treatment of his mother. Sarah glared at Billy, anger flashing across her meticulously made-up face. "Are you taking your mother's side? It's always, 'Mom, Mom.' Do you even know how tired I am? I need my own space too. Don't always listen to your mother like that." Then she turned her back and stormed out of the bedroom, slamming the door behind her, leaving Billy standing frozen in the living room, his face a mask of pain and helplessness. I watched Sarah's figure disappear behind the closed door, my heart heavy with an indescribable sadness and worry. This girl, she wasn't just ungrateful and cruel to me, she had no respect for her own husband. Her selfishness and heartlessness were becoming increasingly apparent, and I couldn't help but fear for Billy's and Tommy's future. I knew that if this situation continued, my family would break apart. I told Carlos about this the following afternoon when he stopped by to help me fix a leaky faucet in the kitchen. Carlos frowned, his face showing clear concern and sympathy as he listened to my account of Sarah's increasingly terrible behavior. Did Mrs. Martha see where Mrs. Sarah went in the evening? Carlos asked, his voice low, his eyes looking at me with worry. I decided it was time for a direct conversation with Billy. I couldn't let my son continue to live in doubt and pain. One evening, after Tommy was fast asleep, I called Billy down to the living room. "Billy, I need to talk to you seriously," I said, my voice firm. Billy sat down opposite me, his face heavy with worry. "I know, Mom, that it's about Sarah and me." "It's more than that," I said. "There are things you don't know. I don't want you to suffer alone. I know everything." Billy looked up at me, surprised. "Mom, you know what's going on?" I told Billy everything Carlos had seen, my suspicions about Sarah's finances, and her secretive behavior. At first, Billy tried to defend his wife, but as I presented the specific details, his face grew increasingly pale. "Mom, how did you find out all this?" Billy asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Carlos helped me," I said. "That Sarah isn't who you think she is, Billy. She's been deceiving you, deceiving this whole family. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." Tears started to roll down Billy's cheeks. He hung his head, the hot tears falling onto the cold floor. I can't believe it. Sarah, why would she do this to me? I loved her. I trusted her completely." I reached over and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I know you're hurting, Billy. But you have to be strong. You have to face this truth. Don't let her lies break you." "But, Tommy, I don't want my son growing up in a broken home. I want him to have both a mother and a father," Billy said, his voice choked with emotion, the worry for Tommy evident in his every word. "I understand, Billy," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "But a family built on lies can never be truly happy. You have to think about your future and Tommy's future. It's better to face the pain now than to live a lie forever." That night, I knew Billy stayed awake. The light in his room burned late into the night. The next morning, he came downstairs with a drawn face and dark circles under his eyes. He said he needed to talk to Sarah. I waited at home, my heart filled with anxiety. By noon, Billy returned, his face ashen, like someone who had just weathered a terrible storm. "I talked to Sarah, Mom," Billy said, his voice hoarse and devoid of emotion. "And what did she say?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest, bracing for the answer I already knew. She denied everything. "She accused me of being jealous and listening to your meddling," Billy said, his voice filled with helplessness and despair. I sighed, a wave of sadness washing over me. I had expected this. Sarah wouldn't easily admit her guilt. "So, what are you going to do?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know anymore, Mom. I need time to think. Everything. It's all messed up in my head," Billy said, then quietly went back upstairs, leaving me alone with my growing worries. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time, Carlos's voice on the other end was filled with excitement, a stark contrast to his usual calm demeanor. "Mrs. Martha, I have some important news," Carlos said, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "What is it, Carlos?" I asked, my heart pounding with anticipation. "I found proof of Mrs. Sarah's financial fraud at Billy's company," Carlos exclaimed. "My friend in accounting sent me documents showing she embezzled a large sum of money and even framed another colleague for it." Hearing Carlos's words, I couldn't help but gasp, a wave of anger washing over me. That girl. She dared to go that far? She hadn't just lied about her personal life. She had committed a crime. "Are you absolutely sure, Carlos?" I asked again, still slightly in disbelief. "I'm positive, Mrs. Martha." My friend checked everything thoroughly. "This is irrefutable proof," Carlos said, his voice filled with confidence and conviction. I thanked Carlos profusely, my gratitude overflowing. This was the evidence we needed. With this, Sarah couldn't deny her deceit any longer. I decided to show these documents to Billy. I believed that seeing the extent of Sarah's actions with his own eyes would finally make him see the truth and make a clean break from this deceitful marriage. That evening, after Billy had eaten his dinner in silence, I handed him the papers Carlos had sent. Billy took them, reading each page with trembling hands, his face growing paler with every line. When he reached the last page, he slumped down at the table, burying his face in his hands, sobbing uncontrollably, the sound of his choked sobs filling the quiet room. Why would she do this to me, Mom? Billy cried out, his voice filled with utter anguish. I sat down beside my son, putting my arm around him, rubbing his back gently. I'm so sorry, Billy. I'm so sorry I didn't see her true colors sooner, that you had to go through this pain. Billy looked up, his eyes red and swollen, tears still streaming down his face. It's not your fault, Mom, Billy said, his voice thick with emotion. It's my fault. I was so blind, so foolish to trust her. What are you going to do now? I asked, my voice filled with worry but also a glimmer of hope. Billy took a deep breath, trying to compose himself, then wiped the tears from his face. I'm going to divorce her, Mom. I can't live with a woman who is so deceitful and cruel. I don't want Tommy growing up in a family where his mother is dishonest. Hearing Billy's words, I felt a heavy burden lift from my shoulders. Finally, my son had made the right decision. But I knew this wasn't the end of the story. Sarah wouldn't let go of Billy and Tommy easily. I had to prepare for the battles that lay ahead. I had to protect my family to the very end. And I believed that with Carlos's help and Billy's newfound clarity, we would overcome everything. After Billy made the resolute decision to divorce Sarah, the atmosphere in the house, already thick with tension, became even more suffocating. Sarah, realizing her deceptions had been exposed and there was no avenue for denial, underwent a stark transformation. The sweet, agreeable facade she had so carefully maintained crumbled away, revealing a bitter and enraged woman beneath. She desperately tried to cling to Billy, resorting to tears and pleas for forgiveness, vowing to change her ways. But this time, Billy's resolve remained unshaken. Sarah's hollow promises held no weight against the tangible evidence of her betrayal. Sarah, it's far too late for this, Billy stated, his voice cold and final, all traces of affection extinguished. I gave you countless opportunities, and you squandered every single one. I cannot continue to live entangled in your web of lies. But Billy, please, think about Tommy. He needs both a mother and a father. You can't be so selfish and tear our family apart. Sarah desperately invoked their son, hoping the plea would pierce Billy's hardened resolve. I will be a good father to Tommy. I will dedicate myself to ensuring he lacks nothing. But I cannot, in good conscience, remain married to someone like you. I refuse to raise my son in a household poisoned by your dishonesty and lack of genuine love, Billy countered, his voice firm, his gaze towards Sarah devoid of any lingering sentiment. Seeing her attempts to sway Billy were futile, Sarah shifted her focus to me, tears of calculated desperation streaming down her meticulously made-up face. Mother Martha, please, I beg you, say something to him. I know I've made terrible mistakes, and I deeply regret everything. I promise I will change. I will treat you and Billy with the respect you deserve. Please, Mother Martha, don't let Billy leave me. I don't want to lose my family. Sarah sank to her knees at my feet, grasping my hands, her voice choked with theatrical sobs. I looked down at Sarah, my heart untouched by her performance. These tears were far too belated. She had inflicted too much pain on Billy and me for too long, the wound she had created too deep to be healed by crocodile tears. Sarah, you have sown the seeds of this destruction yourself, and now you must lie in the bed you made, I said, my voice icily calm and unwavering. I have endured your disrespect and manipulations for far too long. I cannot stand by and watch you continue to inflict misery upon my son and my grandson. You must face the consequences of your own actions. Realizing her attempts to manipulate either of us were futile, Sarah finally revealed her true colors. She stood up, wiping away her tears, her eyes now filled with a chilling resentment and hatred as she glared at Billy and me. Fine. You'll both regret this. Billy will regret this. You think you've won, old woman? I won't let you get away with this. I'll make you pay. Sarah hissed through gritted teeth before turning and storming out of the house, slamming the door behind her. I watched Sarah's retreating figure, a sense of unease settling in my heart. I knew she wouldn't let go easily. The hatred in her eyes told me she would seek revenge in any way she could. Billy approached me, wrapping me in a tight, comforting embrace. Don't worry, Mom, I'll protect you and Tommy. I won't let her hurt us anymore. I believe you, Billy, I said, patting his back gently. But despite my words, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. The storm, I feared, was far from over. In the aftermath of the tense and emotionally draining custody hearing, life for our little family slowly began to find its rhythm again. Sarah, following the unfavorable verdict, seemed to vanish entirely from Billy's and Tommy's lives. Occasionally, in the quiet stillness of the late evenings, I would see Billy sitting alone in the living room, his gaze wistfully fixed on the world outside the window. I knew the scars of the past still lingered in his heart, the memories of those difficult years occasionally resurfacing. However, Billy displayed a newfound strength, channeling his energy into his work, rebuilding his life, and pouring all his love and attention into Tommy, his precious son who had become his greatest source of motivation. Tommy continued to grow, blossoming like a young sapling reaching for sunlight. He was bright, quick-witted, and possessed a remarkably affectionate nature. He remained closely attached to both Billy and me, his clear, innocent voice echoing through the house with "Grandma" and "Dad," chasing away the lingering shadows of the past. Each time I saw Tommy's infectious laughter, his sparkling eyes, and his radiant smile, any lingering worries within me would dissipate, replaced by a simple and profound sense of happiness. Carlos remained a steadfast and cherished friend of our little family. He had seamlessly woven himself into the fabric of our lives, becoming an indispensable presence. Tommy adored Carlos, always eagerly anticipating his visits, clamoring for him to recount his adventurous tales and join in the imaginative games that only Carlos could devise. I held Carlos in a place of deep affection, regarding him as the son I never had. His unwavering kindness, genuine sincerity, and profound empathy had warmed my heart during my darkest and most isolated days. One sun-drenched afternoon, Carlos came over to spend time with Tommy. My grandson and I were comfortably settled in the living room, engrossed in a lively cartoon program, when a gentle knock echoed through the house. Tommy's face lit up with uncontainable joy as he spotted Carlos standing on our doorstep. "Uncle Carlos!" Tommy exclaimed, rushing forward with unrestrained enthusiasm to wrap his small arms around Carlos's legs. Carlos chuckled, scooping Tommy up into a warm embrace, playfully spinning him around, eliciting delighted giggles from the little boy. "Hey there, buddy. Guess what? I brought you something special today." He reached into his bag and produced a vibrant red toy race car. Tommy was ecstatic, clutching the toy car tightly to his chest, his eyes shining with pure joy. I watched the two of them playing contentedly on the living room rug, a quiet sense of happiness spreading through my heart. "Carlos," I called out gently as Tommy zoomed his new car across the floor. "I don't know how I can ever thank you enough for everything you've done for my family." Carlos waved his hand dismissively, his usual gentle smile gracing his lips. "Don't even mention it, Mrs. Martha. I consider you and Tommy my family. Helping family is just what you do. But if it weren't for you, I truly believe Billy and I wouldn't have made it through those terrible times," I said, my voice filled with heartfelt sincerity. "Everything worked out in the end, Mrs. Martha. The important thing is that you and Billy are both healthy and well, and Tommy is growing up happy and strong. Let the past stay in the past," Carlos said, his gaze softening as he watched Tommy play. Life continued its gentle flow, marked by quiet moments of love and mutual support. The following summer, Billy decided to take Tommy on a vacation to the beach. He explained that he wanted Tommy to create happy memories, to experience the joy of the ocean and the sand, hoping it would help him further heal from the difficult experiences he had endured. I stayed home alone, feeling a slight pang of loneliness but ultimately content knowing that my son and grandson were enjoying a much-needed respite. When the two of them returned, Tommy was tanned from the sun and brimming with tales of his seaside adventures. The crashing waves, the tiny crabs scuttling across the sand, and the magnificent sandcastles they had built together. Billy also appeared refreshed, the shadows of sadness that had lingered in his eyes finally beginning to fade. Perhaps those days by the ocean had helped him release some of the burdens he had been carrying. One peaceful evening, Billy sat down to talk with me in the living room after Tommy had drifted off to sleep. "Mom," Billy began, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness, as if he were about to share something significant. I think I'm ready to start seeing someone again." I looked at my son, a flicker of surprise in my eyes. You feel ready for that, Billy? That's wonderful." Billy nodded, a soft smile gracing his lips. "I think so, Mom. I don't want to live in the past forever. I want to find someone who will truly love both Tommy and me, someone to build a happy future with." My heart swelled with happiness for my son. He was still young, and he deserved to find love and companionship again after all the pain he had endured. "I support you wholeheartedly, Billy," I said, reaching out to take his hand, squeezing it gently. "As long as you're happy, that's all that matters to me. And I know Tommy will be happy too." Several months later, Billy introduced me to a woman named Lisa. Lisa was an elementary school teacher, possessing a kind and gentle demeanor. Tommy took an immediate liking to Lisa, affectionately calling her beautiful Aunt Lisa. I, too, found myself drawn to Lisa's warm and genuine nature. She treated me with sincerity and respect, always showing consideration and asking about my well-being as if I were a cherished member of their family. It felt as though our little family was finally on the path to true happiness. However, life, as it often does, had another twist in store. One ordinary day, I received a letter from Sarah's attorney. In the letter, Sarah was demanding custody of Tommy. She argued that Billy was incapable of raising him alone and that she had changed and wanted to make amends for her past mistakes by being a mother to Tommy. Upon hearing this news, both Billy and I were filled with anxiety and a sense of injustice. We had finally found peace, and we were determined not to let Sarah return and disrupt the stable and loving environment we had created for Tommy. "What are we going to do now, Mom?" Billy asked, his face etched with worry and a hint of fear. "We're going to fight, Billy," I said, my voice resolute and unwavering. "We will not let her take Tommy away from you. You are a good father, and Tommy belongs with you." Once again, we sought the counsel of our attorney, preparing for another legal battle. This time, we needed to be even more meticulous, gathering further evidence to demonstrate to the court that Sarah was not a fit mother and that Billy possessed the unwavering love and capability to provide Tommy with the best possible upbringing. The fight for Tommy's custody had begun anew, and this time, the stakes felt even higher, the potential loss even more devastating. Sarah, armed with a formidable team of lawyers, was determined to gain the upper hand, painting a completely different picture of herself to the court. But we were not alone. Lisa stood firmly by Billy's side, offering unwavering support. Carlos tirelessly helped us gather any information that could be detrimental to Sarah's case, and our dear friends and family rallied around us, ready to testify to Billy's character and his deep love for his son. The courtroom battles were intense and emotionally draining, Sarah putting on a convincing performance of remorse and maternal affection. However, our legal team was well prepared, presenting irrefutable evidence of Sarah's past instability and her manipulative nature. Finally, after months of relentless legal maneuvering, the court delivered its verdict. Custody of Tommy remained with Billy, and Sarah was granted only supervised visitation rights according to the court's strict schedule. We breathed a collective sigh of relief. Tommy would stay with us, and the hard-won piece of our family would be protected. Following the arduous and emotionally taxing custody battle for Tommy, life for our little family gradually settled into a peaceful rhythm once more. Lisa officially moved in with Billy and Tommy, bringing a fresh wave of warmth and affection into their home. She cared for Tommy with unwavering dedication, her gentle and patient nature nurturing him as if he were her own son. Tommy, in turn, showered Lisa with affection, calling her beautiful Aunt Lisa, a heartfelt acceptance and love that I could sense with profound clarity. A deep sense of happiness bloomed within me as I watched my son finally find joy and stability after enduring so much heartache. Lisa was a kind, sincere, and compassionate woman, bringing a sense of tranquility and happiness to Billy's life that had been absent during his years with Sarah. The bond between Billy and Lisa grew stronger with each passing day. They shared their joys and sorrows, diligently nurturing their small family unit. I continued to live in my own cherished home, the place where I had spent my entire adult life, but I became a frequent visitor at Billy's, delighting in spending time with Tommy and now with Lisa as well. It warmed my heart to see Tommy flourishing into a bright, well-behaved, and increasingly intelligent young boy. He had inherited many of Billy's traits, both in appearance and personality, but also possessed his own unique spark of mischief and charm. Lisa, too, was incredibly thoughtful towards me, always asking about my health, sharing stories from her school, and often inviting me to join them for dinner. Carlos remained a steadfast and cherished friend of our entire family. He had married a lovely woman and started a family of his own, with 2 adorable children. Despite his busy life, Carlos always made time to visit us, checking in on my well-being and playing with Tommy and Emily, Billy and Lisa's sweet little daughter who had joined the family a couple of years after Lisa moved in. Our friendship had deepened over the years, transcending age and the trials we had faced together, becoming a true bond of family. One sun-drenched afternoon, Carlos came over to visit me, bringing a vibrant bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums. "Mrs. Martha Oy, is there a special occasion today? You seem particularly happy," Carlos asked with a warm smile, his eyes full of genuine care. "No special occasion, Carlos A," I replied, my heart genuinely light. "Just feeling peaceful and content. Seeing my children and grandchildren doing well is all the celebration I need." "I've noticed you've been looking much brighter lately, Mrs. Martha," Carlos said sincerely. "Having Tommy and Lisa around must bring you a lot of joy." I nodded, a contented smile gracing my lips. "Indeed, Carlos A. I feel incredibly fortunate to have such loving family around me. Life has thrown its share of storms my way, but I've finally found a calm and happy shore." "You deserve all the good things in life, Mrs. Martha," Carlos said, his voice filled with respect and affection. Life continued its gentle rhythm, filled with the quiet joys of everyday moments shared with loved ones. Tommy entered first grade, then second, excelling in his studies, always polite and well-mannered. Emily, with her babbling attempts at speech, filled Billy and Lisa's home with the sweet sounds of early childhood. I felt immense pride in my grandchildren. One warm evening, our whole family, Billy, Lisa, Tommy, Emily, and I gathered for dinner at my house. The meal was filled with laughter and warmth, the sounds of happy chatter echoing through the rooms. Watching everyone together, my heart overflowed with happiness and gratitude. After dinner, when the grandchildren had gone off to play, Billy sat down to talk with me privately in the living room. "Mom," Billy began, his voice carrying a note of seriousness, but his eyes shone with happiness. "Lisa and I are planning to get married this fall." I looked at my son, a wave of unexpected joy washing over me. "Really, Billy? Oh, I'm so happy for you both. Lisa is a wonderful woman. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Billy smiled, reaching out to take my hand. "I knew you'd be happy for us, Mom. Lisa is an amazing woman, and I love her very much. Tommy loves her too, and even Emily already calls her Mama Lisa. I see how good Lisa is. Cherish her, Billy. You've been through so much, you deserve this complete happiness," I said, squeezing his hand, my heart filled with joy and hope for his future. Billy and Lisa's wedding was a beautiful and intimate affair, witnessed by close family and friends. Tommy, as the junior groomsman, beamed with pride in his little suit, running around excitedly. I watched my son standing radiant beside his kind and loving bride, a feeling of deep contentment and gratitude washing over me. My life now was so different from the loneliness I had once felt. I was surrounded by love, had a dear friend in Carlos, and 2 wonderful grandchildren. Though time had brought healing and happiness, occasionally, in quiet moments of reflection, I would still think of Sarah. The bitterness had faded, but the memories of the pain she had caused our family remained. I could only hope that one day, she would recognize the error of her ways and find peace within herself. Several years passed, and Tommy blossomed into a bright, intelligent, and remarkably considerate young boy. Emily, too, grew into a charming and spirited little girl, her joyful presence filling Billy and Lisa's home with endless laughter and playful energy. Our family had expanded, our bonds strengthening with each passing year, creating a tapestry woven with love and mutual support. I remained in good health and retained my sharp mind, cherishing my role as the beloved grandmother. My visits to Billy and Lisa's home became a regular and much anticipated part of my week. I would regale Tommy and Emily with tales from my childhood, sharing stories of a world that seemed so different from their own, and we would spend hours playing traditional games in the backyard, their innocent joy a balm to my soul. Tommy and Emily adored their bar noi, always eager to sit on my lap, their small hands clutching mine as I spun my yarns. Carlos remained a cherished and integral part of our extended family. He had married a kind and gentle woman, and they were blessed with 2 beautiful children. Despite the demands of his successful career and his own growing family, Carlos always made time to visit me, his presence a comforting constant in my life. We would spend hours in conversation, sharing the joys and sorrows that life inevitably brings, our bond deepening with each passing year. One warm afternoon, our entire family gathered at Billy's house to celebrate Tommy's 10th birthday. He had grown into a thoughtful and articulate young man, a far cry from the small, bewildered boy who had been caught in the crossfire of his parents' tumultuous relationship. The party was filled with the joyous sounds of children playing, the aroma of barbecue filling the air, and the warmth of familial love surrounding us. During the celebration, Tommy unexpectedly stood up, raising his glass of sparkling cider, his gaze fixed on me with an expression of deep affection and gratitude. "I want to say thank you to Bar Noi," Tommy announced, his voice clear and steady for his young age. "You have always loved and taken care of me since I was little. You're the best Bar Noi in the whole world. I love you very much." Hearing Tommy's heartfelt words, my eyes welled up with tears of emotion. I rose from my chair and embraced my grandson tightly, my heart overflowing with love. "Bar Noi loves you very much too, Tommy," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "You are the light of my life." Billy and Lisa exchanged loving glances, their faces reflecting the happiness that filled the room. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and gratitude. Life may present its share of hardships and trials, but the enduring power of family love would always be the anchor that kept us grounded and the beacon that guided us through the storms. I had weathered my own tempest, endured loneliness and heartache, but in the end, happiness and tranquility had found their way back into my life, nurtured by the love of my son, my grandchildren, and my steadfast friend Carlos. I knew I was not a perfect person. I had made my own mistakes throughout my life. But I had always strived to love and care for my family to the best of my ability. And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their love, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that my efforts had been rewarded. As the years continued their gentle passage, I found myself embraced by the golden hues of my twilight years, my hair now a cascade of silver. My children had fully embraced their adulthood, Billy and Lisa creating a beautiful life together with Tommy and Emily, each navigating the joys and challenges of their own families. I remained in my cherished home, the silent witness to decades of laughter and tears, the keeper of countless family memories. I often found solace in the quietude of my small backyard garden, watching the vibrant blossoms unfurl their petals under the soft sunlight. This garden, a labor of love cultivated since my youth, held a special significance, each plant and flower intertwined with a precious memory. In the garden's peaceful embrace, my thoughts would often drift back to the past, to the trials and tribulations I had faced. Yet, I held no regrets, for those very experiences had forged my resilience and deepened my appreciation for the blessings I now held. Carlos remained a constant and comforting presence in my life. He had matured into a successful and compassionate man, cherishing his own loving wife and 2 delightful children. Despite the demands of his career and family, Carlos consistently made time for his visits, his genuine concern for my well-being a testament to our enduring bond. Our conversations spanned hours, encompassing the joys and sorrows of our respective lives, our friendship a timeless connection that transcended age and circumstance. One mellow autumn afternoon, Carlos arrived at my doorstep, carrying a worn leather-bound photo album he had discovered tucked away in my attic. "Bah Martha oi, I found this in the attic. I thought it might bring back some memories," Carlos said with a gentle smile, handing me the aged album. I accepted the album with trembling hands, carefully turning its brittle pages. Faded black and white photographs mingled with sepia-toned images, each one a portal to a bygone era, stirring a cascade of recollections. There were pictures of a mischievous young Billy, a handsome George with his youthful grin, and snapshots of joyous family picnics under the summer sky. My fingers traced the outline of a particular photograph, one capturing a tender moment between a young Tommy and me. I held him close in my arms, our faces beaming with unadulterated joy. Gazing at this image, a wave of profound emotion washed over me. How swiftly time had flown, the tiny infant in my arms now a capable young man. "Time passes so quickly, doesn't it, Carlos?" I said, my voice thick with a bittersweet nostalgia. "Yes, Bah Martha," Carlos replied softly, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "But the beautiful memories remain forever, etched in our hearts." I nodded, a gentle smile gracing my lips as tears welled in my eyes. Indeed, the precious memories would forever reside within me, offering warmth and solace in my later years. My life may not have been without its imperfections, but I knew I had lived a life of meaning, a life enriched by the enduring love of family and the unwavering loyalty of true friendship. I had loved and been loved, had weathered the storms and found solace in the simple joys. And I knew that as time continued its relentless march, the love that bound my family together would remain my steadfast anchor, its roots running deep and strong, impervious to the passage of years. In the quiet contentment of my final chapter, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for all that had been, the joys and the sorrows alike, for they had all contributed to the woman I had become, surrounded by the enduring embrace of my beloved family.